Hello and welcome to the Bee Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business from the inside out. And today I'm welcoming to the show Sara Axelbaum, but I'm going to say in brackets Axel because you said there's five or six Saras at your work, and so hence why you're called Axel. So welcome to the show, Sara.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Thank you for welcoming me. Yeah, having a name like Sarah was the most popular name of my generation. So between so many people being named Sarah at my company, also when I go to Starbucks, if somebody calls out Sarah, somebody's stealing my drink. So I just go by Axel pretty much universally now. And
I
we have
love
a
it.
name like Axelbaum, it just blends itself in that direction.
Yeah. So would you prefer me to call you Axel today or Sarah?
Either one is totally fine. Whatever feels more natural to you. There's
Uh,
only one of me here on the
Yeah, I
podcast right
might
now.
just call
Great.
it, I might call you Axel. We might just go with it, right?
Sounds great.
here's a fun fact. When I was a baby, when I was born, um, there was like the like generation thing, but there was eight. Mum was in a ward with like eight other mothers having, their babies, and like six or seven
Mhm.
of them called their daughter Belinda. And you're
Wow.
either a Belinda Lee or a Belinda Jane. That's your middle name, and I'm a Belinda Lee. So there you go. It's a little
There you
there's
go.
little fun facts, isn't there, everywhere? But anyway, we're going to have quite the debate, quite the conversation, I feel, and I am really
Yeah.
looking forward to it. So let's get into it. You are the EVP of Inclusion and ESG at MiQ, which is a global
Mhm.
programmatic media partner. You lead MiQ's worldwide inclusion strategy, which is IDEA, and then the ESG agenda. And after moving into DEI leadership back in 2020, you had previously had a career in advertising and client services. And I think you had like a 20-year career. So we've got some synergies going on here. But you're passionate about creating inclusive work environments, and Axel leverages her expertise to inspire others to prioritize purpose alongside profit. Love that. You were previously SVP, Client Service and Executive Partner for Diversity and Inclusion at Fox Networks Group. And when you booked into the pod and I asked you what's one unique insight when it comes to life leadership and or experience, did I say that right? I'm not even like, I think I've just lost my chain of thought then. I was when you booked in for the pod and I asked you what's one unique experience or insight when it comes to life leadership and or business, you gave me two
Mhm.
options. And I was like, this is really intriguing. And I feel like this is where predominantly a lot of the conversation will come out of. You're a career
Mhm.
switcher, spent 20 years in advertising media, then switched into inclusion and ESG when I had the opportunity to finally decide which ladder I actually wanted to climb. This second
Mhm.
part was even more intriguing for me, and it was my personal antidote to burnout is doing more in capital letters. So I was like, whoa. I was like, someone who's had severe burnout, I was like, hang on a second. Saying yes, taking the risks. I'm always tired but never bored. And I was like, is this woman condoning burnout? Is she suggesting we need to just keep going and going and going and so we burn out and we just stay tired forever? Or is she like it was just so intriguing for me. And we were just talking pre-show. So I'm gonna hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your journey and of course why you gave me those two responses as well.
Yeah, sure. It's a bit of a hot take, I know. But I guess first for kind of the career swap, I was climbing the ladder of advertising. I started agencies, I went to client service, I was on the sales side. And as I was climbing the ladder, I just kind of kept finding the next rung up. And then I was 8 months pregnant, and Disney acquired Fox. And for the very first time in my career, I actually had an opportunity to kind of stop and think, wait, what do I want to do next? Not what's the next thing I'm going to fall into, but what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And I had done a lot of work at Fox. I started the Women at 21 CF group with a whole group of wonderful women, which led me into working on Impact Week, where we brought in
Mm,
speakers and engagements and programming and volunteerism. And then I helped other ERGs and employee resource groups get off the ground during that time and wound up becoming very close to the chief diversity officer there. I was partnering with her as the executive kind of on the East Coast to bring everything to life. And I remember sitting in a bar with her during this acquisition. She was drinking, obviously, a cocktail. I had a lovely mocktail. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do next. I don't know. She goes, you should do this. You should do this. I was like, nah, nobody gets paid to do diversity and inclusion. Like that's
Mm,
something that is a
mm,
bonus. It's a nice to have. And she said, the right company will pay you to do this.
yeah.
So I had a baby. I went back to school. I trained up on kind of the new world of how to create a more inclusive culture. And then, as it turned out, a company that I had previously worked with most of their staff, somebody who I previously had a really good connection with, said, hey, you're going into DEI. My company wants to start an inclusion department. You should meet the CEO. And I was like, yeah, I'm still kind of on my journey. I'm doing some consulting. I love it. He said, spend 5 minutes with him, see what you think. Within 5 minutes, I knew I was taking the job because he said to me that he didn't want to do it because it was the right thing to do. He wanted to do it because it meant something to him as a person.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was just such a different conversation than what I was having with everyone else. So I took the leap and I went to a completely different career. And I started the first week of March 2020, which was an auspicious time to start a new job.
Yeah, 100%. Especially in COVID, well, the start of COVID as well. And there's so much like to even
Yeah.
call out there because, coming from advertising background myself, like it was very Mad Men at some point, like a lots of
Oh, yes.
times there. And so you would have seen what like there was literally like it was non-existent DEI like it was very interesting like that, kind of. And so you would have seen what like the one extreme, and then like obviously it's changed now, and I was on the D&I committee at the last agency I was at, and we were bringing in lots of different things, to really kind of ensure that there was that diversity, the eradicating any like bias and those sorts of things. But yeah, so you would have taken a lot from your advertising career to then go
Yes,
into
indeed.
this new career, right? Because and merge the two worlds almost because of all the experience you had from your previous world.
Yeah, and I think, talking to other people who were doing DEI at the time, a lot of them came from the HR side. So they were more kind of on the already trained in
Yeah,
people. I was coming fresh from the business side. I knew kind of how to talk to people who were doing jobs like me because I did
yeah,
that job six
yeah,
months prior.
yeah.
So it made it much easier to kind of make it real for me. But then also I had to upskill on all the other stuff that I'd never done before. So it was a great challenge, but also really lent itself to my strengths. And I dove in head first, and it was quite a fascinating first year. But I haven't looked back.
And so tell me a little bit about that in terms of like what was, you talk around this switching, and then, it was actually the ladder you wanted to climb. What was it
Mhm.
about switching, and was it like, coming back to, the purpose piece, and, you inspire others to prioritize their purpose alongside profit, but profit to the side because this is around you. What was it that was like,
Mhm.
was there a defining moment where you were like, this is the right ladder I'm on? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I came from the media planning and buying background. So analytics of digital advertising campaigns was kind of my bread and butter. And then I was looking at the world of inclusion, and everyone's like, well, we know we're doing the right thing, but we don't have any way of tracking it. We don't know what to do with data. And I said, I know what to do with data. So I took all of the data from all over the place and treated it like an optimized media campaign.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how to do people analytics because I'd never done that before, but I knew how to do ad analytics. So I brought a very different lens and a filter to it. And I was able to kind of put all the data together and just say, hey, here's the trends, here's the patterns, not just where we are, but where we've been. And on my first week with the CEO, I remember telling him by the end of this year, I want to convince you to release a full report that has all of our data. I was like, there's no way he's going to let me do that. And that conversation, he said to me, oh no, we're doing that. We're going to do that as soon as possible. Let's do it this year. So he just gave me the go ahead to do it. And it was kind of off to the races from there. So I worked with the entire global team, which was in some cases doing things on Excel spreadsheets or in QuickBooks one here place, and there was nothing consolidated. So we looked at data hygiene, how do we make the analytics work? And by the end of it, we created our first idea report, which is the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accountability report. And I would say that most companies, having seen the data, would have buried their head in the sand and told me, do not talk about this. Because we found out that women were more likely to be paid in the bottom half of their salary band.
Yeah,
Most companies would have run away and said, don't tell anyone. Instead, I was so impressed because our CEO said, no, we got to tell everyone because that'll mean we're going to fix it.
yeah,
And sure enough, in the first year, we were able to close the salary gap because we were just very vocal about it. And
yeah.
I think the interesting thing there is I knew from being somebody who ran a team of dozens of people, hundreds of people at some points, that if you tell somebody, hey, you're paying people inequitably, people are immediately going to put their hands up and be like, no, not me, I wouldn't do that. So instead, we really did kind of this education campaign about how women are less likely to negotiate their salary from their very first job. And then every single job after that, they're starting at a lower base. So it has nothing to do with you, hiring manager. This isn't your fault. This is systemic. And if we can all just look at everybody in the team and say, let's pay them what they're worth instead of the least amount we can get them to do this job for, that entire philosophy changed how we did salaries and pay bands. And it would literally just, we didn't say change it for women. We didn't tell anybody to do anything specific. We just gave them that education and told them that they could reset their salaries for their teams. And it was closed in a year. And it was as simple, but not easy as that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because it's two way, isn't it? Like you've called something out really pertinent for me in terms of this, like it's systemic, but it's also, and you called out worth, and I was thinking about self-worth, and as women in particular, we're not as bulgy as, well, not all, but as men at times, and there's it's something that's in us that we've got to work on, and like have that self-worth. So
Mhm.
like you say, it's not necessarily like the hate like the department as such, but it's a systemic situation. But it's also two ways. So by paying them what they're worth creates that self-worth as well. But I think it's not just about the dollars here. It's about you and how do you bring out that self-worth as well. And so I think that's really
Mhm.
important. And, as this continues to evolve, which is going to be my next question, because there's a lot of change that has happened, from a political standpoint, especially in your country. Um,
Yes.
and basically, for me, how much has that changed I guess, the landscape for you in terms of what you're doing? Yeah.
That's a great question. It's been a hard year. There's no denying that. I can't sugarcoat it. And I think what's made it the hardest is the fact that we don't have any of the right answers, because there's very little actual legal guidance because we're just in a different place than we were. So we kind of, as a company, we got together and we said, okay, what are we doing? And let's take this as a moment to reevaluate it. Let's take this as a moment to say, are we doing the right things? And I think what we kind of internally realized is that we were doing the right thing that could absolutely not be categorized as anything that was remotely inequitable or in any way treating anybody differently. We made a concerted effort to make sure all of the things that we did were always based in overall equity. We were never saying, hey, we have a pay band problem with women, pay the women more. That was not our philosophy. Our philosophy was, let's look at pay overall and pay everyone what they're worth, pay
Yeah.
everyone in a salary band. And it just happened that that benefited women. So there could be equality and equity within what we were doing. And the introspectiveness that it forced us to do, I think, was very healthy.
Yeah.
But we netted out in a very similar place. The only thing is that we can't talk about it as much because we don't want somebody to mistake what we're doing for what people are being suspicious of. And
Mm.
that's a tough spot because it's really hard to defend if people don't really see what it is that we're doing. Because if I just said we closed our salary band because women were paid in the bottom half and now they're not, immediately people are going to think, oh, well, you must have done something for the women. And that's not it at all. But we don't want to be in a place where we have to defend ourselves. So we've kind of had to just go a little more undercover and really just not talk about it as much for fear that we're going to get mixed up in something that we have nothing to do with.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, isn't it? Do you feel like that's like, has that kind of been because you seem so passionate about what you do, and then you're almost being like coming back, like it's even like it kind of relates to self-worth, right? Like you're almost having to silence it in a way when actually we're in a world of freedom of speech, the authenticity, being like you were just saying even pre-show. So this is just a free-flowing conversation. Yeah, it's free-flowing. And I get
Yeah.
this all the time from people. So what's the script, or is there a
Mhm.
script? It's like, no. And then you were asking me about editing, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's no real editing towards this. Might be at the start because I lost my chain of thought, but no, I think I'll just leave it like whatever. It is what it is, right? We're all
It's
human.
real.
It's real.
We all lose our train of thought.
Yeah, thank you. And like for me, I kind of go, it's in that regard. What's that like for you as, a leader and here, you know, doing good and, bringing more equality into the world, everything you've just been talking about. That must be challenging at
Yeah.
times when you're just like almost flying under the radar
Hmm.
so that you
Yeah.
don't get caught up in the wrong conversation or the wrong debate. Has
Yeah.
that dampened
It's
your
really,
has that dampened your career in terms of like in this space you're in, or is it just making you even more determined?
I would say right now we're kind of laying low, knowing that we can still keep doing the good work as long as we don't scream about it, and
Yeah,
knowing that eventually this is going to figure itself out.
yeah,
Eventually, people are
yeah,
going to define what is and isn't illegal. People are going to define, what the lines are. And once those definitions are there, we'll follow whatever they are. We just need them defined. And I think
yeah,
right now it's a weird time where we're all kind of like looking at each other, being like, well, we're going to keep doing this, but we don't know exactly what's going to get us in trouble, so we're just not going to yell about it anymore. So I
yeah.
went from having a pretty big PR budget for what I was doing to none because this isn't the time to be screaming about it.
No,
And I think that that's disheartening sometimes. And, keeping the spirits up of my team when people are accusing us of doing illegal stuff is tough,
yeah,
especially because we're not. We all went into this job because our hearts are in it. We want to do the right thing. We
yeah.
want to be
Transparency.
in
Yeah.
service.
Mm.
Yeah. We're service people. We want to help. So to be accused of something so wrong, it's such an antithesis to who we are and how we operate. So keeping, everyone up and excited about it has been hard, but gratefully, we have people who are working on these super amazing projects that we can just put all of our energy behind.
I was about to
We have
say,
employee resource group leads. They're volunteers and they are crushing it. Like they're just sitting there being like, nope, we're going to keep doing the right thing. We're volunteering to do this. We're going to lead our women's group, our parent group, our pride group, our Black group, our veterans group, our ability group. They're just going to keep moving forward in the right direction because there's nothing about what they're doing that anybody could possibly think is illegal unless they're just not looking very closely.
yeah.
We had a huge product launch this year, the biggest product launch my company has ever done. And our Ability IQ employee resource group partnered with our product team to say, okay, how do we make sure that our product is accessible to people with low vision or people who don't hear because we have some sound in what we do, making sure that everything that was built was something that anybody from anywhere could access. And who can argue with that? Like, truly. Um, but, unfortunately, there's just a lot of confusion as to what it is that we do. And that's sad because I think we're all just in here trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's really, really, really quite interesting. Well, it's more than interesting, like, but what comes out for me in all of this and what you're talking about here is that, you can only control the controllable, right? So, as it's, in times like this, sometimes we do need to just, it's almost like for me, it's kind of like, I mean, I'm all about inside out transformation, right? So sometimes we're, out and then we've got to go back in. And so as you're in and as you're like more quieter, if you like, you're still doing all the good stuff. You're still doing all the work.
Yeah.
But what generally comes out of that is new ideas, new sparks, in times like this. So then when the time is right to come back out, you have this inside out transformation, if that makes sense. And so I love if we thought about it that way, and I think you are, and from what I can hear from you, and just keep
Yeah.
doing what you're doing. But you're doing like for me, DEI has been around for so long in terms of, well,
Yeah.
not long, but like, when I was involved in it with the company I was in from an advertising perspective, that was years ago. Like that, I'm talking like
Yeah.
6, 8 years ago. And it's interesting
Yeah.
because it had to evolve. And so it feels like you're going through
Mhm.
quite an revolution now. It just happens to
Mhm.
be in the circumstances that are unfortunate. But like what
Yeah.
comes out of this is fascinating. It's almost like you're reimagining and recreating what it looks like going forward. So I love that thought, and that's probably what keeps everyone in your team going, and certainly by the sounds of things, you and all the projects. So yeah, fascinating. Tell us a little bit about this personal antidote to burnout and doing
Yeah.
more in capital letters. I am so intrigued by this.
Sure. I think that, I've experienced burnout many times in my life. And I think I've always said to myself, gosh, you're burning out, you're exhausted. You can't say yes to anything else. Like, you got to be strong. Say no to everything. Just don't take on anything more. And what I realized was that exhaustion was not the metric I should have been using. Jobs are exhausting, family's exhausting, gosh, the world is exhausting. You know, I think my job is always kind of like the source of, am I burning out? And it's not always going to be igniting. It's not always going to like light me up. That's why they pay us to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but I was saying no to so much that I felt like the only thing I was doing was the stuff that I didn't enjoy. And it was stopping me from saying yes to the things that I wanted to do. So I was like, gosh, it's not that I'm tired. That's not like what I should be judging this by. I should be judging by, am I taking whatever time I have and putting it to use in something that's going to fill my cup, that's going to make it feel like I can take on whatever negativity is in the world? Am I saying yes to the right things? And I think that that's where I had this kind of brain shift of, I don't want to be rested. I don't want to be, in a place where I'm not tired. I want to be in a place where I'm fulfilled. And I think sometimes fulfillment is doing a lot more than you think you can handle, but it's doing the right things.
Yeah.
So, I joined the committees that I was saying no to. I invested in my kids' schools. I wrote a book. I was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and writing for an hour every morning because I was passionate about it. And that should have made me more tired. Like I should have said, like, wait, I'm so tired. I can't wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. But by doing that, I found my spark again. By spending more hours doing the things I loved, I felt like, oh my gosh, I was really looking at burnout wrong. And I'm so glad that I kind of had that aha moment because it has revolutionized how I operate and how I kind of look at the decisions that are in front of me.
Yeah, it's so fascinating, and I love that because it's really explained like, and I totally relate to it because I think that when you have burnout, it's generally it's like a build-up of something chronic or stress or whatever, and like you say, doing the wrong, like not the wrong things, but doing the things that don't spark joy, don't fulfill you, and you get caught in that hamster wheel, and you're just doing it. And then you don't, like you say, you don't then have time to do the things that you love. And then it's just like this, it's like a, it's just like this, what's the word I'm looking for? But you're stuck in all the things you hate doing. And then you're
Yeah,
resentful because you can't do the things you want to do. And then, so
yeah,
then the minute you say no to all the things that don't fill you up, and then you start doing all the things that you love, you can do more. And it's pushing you out of your comfort zone. It's your
mhm,
energy. And I think that, that makes complete sense to me. And so it's a great analogy. Do you see that also a lot in what you do from a business perspective as well? Do you see that in a lot of the people that you're working with, especially leaders and teams in terms of it must just is it a big part of do you or maybe the question is it this could be the next big part of like coming back to systems and DEI and the ESG agenda. I wonder if this is something that is stirring and going to be a big part of the next evolution or revolution, if you like. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, because there's this whole
yeah,
piece
yeah,
around burnout and survival and stuff like that. But like, it's also around back to like self-worth, a systemic problem in businesses. Imagine if we looked at it more holistically from what you're doing as well. Like, do you see that as an opportunity, and also do you see that in leaders?
Yeah, I think that I spent a lot of my career trying to knock the door down, thinking that was my only way in, instead of trying to figure out how to get myself invited. And that's where I'm trying to, put my energy. Like, I want people to want to bring me in. I don't want to have to be like banging on that door saying, this is all the reasons you got to let me in. And that's made me like focus on the things that people want and what motivates them, and really kind of think more strategically about how can I make this worthwhile to them? How
Mm,
do I make sure that they know what's in it for them so
mm,
that way they want what I'm giving?
mm.
I'm not pushing an agenda.
Yeah,
They are coming to me asking for it. And that is a big part of how I think DEI has kind of been sewn in more in my
yeah,
company, where we made it so it seems so valuable for our executives that how could they not want it? How could they
yeah,
not want to retain their talent? How could they not want to make people feel good at work? How could they not want to get more efficiency out of their people? So by kind of turning it on its head, it's made it so, let's get them to say yes to more. Let's get
yeah.
them to want more and not say like, oh, you're distracting from work. No, we're adding to everything that they're doing. And that is a different way of thinking about it.
I love it. So tell me a little bit about prioritizing purpose alongside profit. Purpose and profit, right? Like
Mhm.
they completely go hand in hand, but there's still a lot of conversations and a lot of businesses that still focus on profit first. And
Mhm.
the purpose and all of that, like, it's old world, but there's, that's not a priority. The profit hitting the numbers is, and yet then there's the big question around, well, why aren't we hitting our numbers? And it's because, well, hang
Mhm.
on a second, there's no meaning, there's no purpose. What is everyone working towards? Yeah, you're passionate about creating that. You inspire others to prioritize that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times it feels like a spectrum with those two things on either end. So you either have to be like more towards purpose or more towards profit, as opposed to like 100% of both.
Yeah,
And I think that it shouldn't be a choice. You shouldn't have to choose one or the other. It should work in lockstep. Because I think that a lot of times when people are talking about purpose, they're like, well, if you're making money off of it, it can't be good. Like you can't be doing anything with purpose if you're actually making money because you're selling your soul. But
yeah,
in the end, you can't do anything with purpose without money. Like, I'm sorry, it just doesn't
I
happen.
agree.
A
Yeah,
business is not going to invest in things if it doesn't do something for
yeah.
them. So figuring out what the business levers are, what is it that is being impacted, and making it mean something to the business is so important when you want to do the passion work.
Mm,
And vice versa. If you want to get profit, you got to figure out what people are passionate about, because people are never going to give more of themselves if you don't give them a reason to want to do it. And the person who's in middle management isn't sitting there being like, if I work an extra hour today, I'm going to make an extra dollar for myself. Like, it's just not how people operate.
no.
But if instead they're like, you know what? This company believes in things that I believe in, and I'm going to work an extra hour because the rest of my team is depending on me, and we are all in this together, and I have a sense of belonging and purpose with each other. That's what's going to motivate people. So it's the two things combined at full steam ahead that I think is what really makes things work. And if you try to make it a binary choice, then you're always going to wind up failing at both.
Yeah, so true. So true. So tell us, what do you think are the biggest opportunities, in this second half of the 20s, Axel, in terms of just like everything we've been talking about today? Well, what do you think are the big opportunities short term? It's hard to predict long term, but like, yeah, what are you seeing?
I think kind of going down to the basics of like what makes people want to show up, what makes people burn with a passion, what makes people really feel good about what they're doing.
Mm,
I think that it seems so basic to kind of go to somebody and be like, hey, why do you do this job? Why do you like it? But we're not asking those questions. We're expecting that people are showing up every day because they love advertising. Nobody's sitting there saying, I
no.
cannot wait to optimize my campaign. Like, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so true.
But
So
what
true.
what is it? Like they're not showing up just for the paycheck, because if they were showing up for the paycheck, they'd do a job that made them money and they didn't do anything else. So what is it? And getting to kind of the kernels and the nuggets of truth that are underneath it all
Mm.
is what, as you were saying earlier, like the introspective motion, like right now, where we have to kind of bring it inside, we have to bring it closer to the vest. How do we make sure we're investing in the things that actually motivate people instead of the things that seem like we're supposed to be doing just because we're supposed to be doing them?
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a little more kind of thought towards true motivation as opposed to best practice, because I think all
Mm.
of our best practices are out the window. They're
Mm.
all gone.
Yeah.
Every best practice we have, either we're not allowed to do, or somebody's going to think skeptically of it, or it just doesn't work in this new world order of 2026. So, how
Yeah.
did we get here in the first place? What made us take that first step? And how do we just keep moving from there?
Yeah, so good. I just love the way you you're approaching it in a really anti-fragile way in terms of it's a really fragile, kind of time, but it's not just about bouncing back now. It's about like, okay, well then how do we take this and how do we take it forward? And then what are we doing? And so getting back to those basics and what is the true motivation versus best practice. Because it's not just in what you're doing, it's across everything, right? Like everything is up for grabs, in terms of, well, how do we reshape and redefine what's next? Whether it's in life or whether again, leadership or in business. And this is the opportunity to do so. And I think if we look at it that way, I think and understanding what makes it people tick, what makes everyone wake up and come to work and do what they do each day. I think we're gonna have a better system, a better model. We're gonna have more, you know, engaged, more people that are feeling fulfilled and motivated. And I think that is what we need to see more of. And I think that's exciting, but it's kind of just taking the steps and working our way through everything that's surrounding us at the moment as well. A couple
Yeah.
of final questions for you.
Yeah.
What are my final two questions for you? So based on true motivation, what do you then see as the true motivation of the younger generation? Like, what are you seeing? What is their true motivation?
I think it's so interesting to watch this new generation that's now kind of, I think of the kids who didn't get to do their senior year of high school are now our new hires because that was COVID. They literally missed out on one of the most critical times in their lives. And now they're expected to be fully grown
Yeah,
adults doing fully grown jobs. And I think, first of all, there's a recognition of the gap that happened that I don't think enough people are doing. Everyone's expecting people to graduate just like we did. And that was already not true. And now it's so much more not true because they had such a different
experience.
like interruption in
Yeah,
their lives.
yeah,
And not enough credit is given to that, first off. Second off, I think that, it's very easy to see people who are deciding not to do things the way that we did them as lazy. And I hate that comparison because just because somebody's doing something differently doesn't mean they're doing it incorrectly.
no,
It means that we now have to figure out, well, how do we motivate them? And it's going to
yeah,
be harder, and it should be harder. It should be harder. Every generation, it should be harder to get them to do the things that we did because it shouldn't be as automatic because we're not automatons. We are not robots. We are people and people evolve. And I think that,
I love
the more that we just kind of discredit them and say they're lazy, they're never going to do it, that's absolutely not true. We just have to figure out what their why is. And it's very different for everyone.
that.
I think that, I think of my parents' generation, they just felt lucky to have jobs no matter what they were. My generation, it was, you can either do what you love or do something to make money, and those two things never kind of could combine. And now this new generation saying, wait a second, why can't it be both? Why can't I
Yeah,
love what I'm doing? And granted, again, like nobody's getting up in the morning saying like, I love advertising so much. I can't wait to optimize. But at the same time, you got to give them other reasons to want to be there. And
yeah,
that's where I think that the companies who are still investing in inclusion and
yeah,
belonging are the companies that are going to make it long term.
yeah.
Because I think it was very easy for companies to invest in this when it was sexy and everyone was talking about it and it was big deal.
Yes.
Companies that are still doing it now, these are the real companies. These are the companies who are committed because it's hard to do it now. It is not sexy. It is not appealing. It is actually kind of dangerous because we just don't know what the laws are. So I think that if you kind of, especially this young generation, looks for companies who are still investing in their people, those are the companies that are going to do very well. And I think that we go through these pendulums that keep going back and forth. And I think we're in this weird time where everything is swung to treat people like they are disposable. And the more you do that, the worse things get. And eventually they're going to get to a place where all those companies that are taking the time to invest in
Feedback.
people
Yeah,
as
totally.
people are
Yeah.
going to win.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's such a good point. It's such a good point. Yeah, you're totally right. It's again coming back to stay the course, like either introspective, yeah, be ready when you're ready to come back out. And then finally, what would be one, I guess, based on just what you talked about then, and that there's probably a lot of businesses that did have programs and did have, D&I and, everything, ESG, all of it in their business, and then they've just shut it down from fear or like scared of getting into trouble, being illegal.
Mhm.
But yet they know deep down that they should be they should be picking it back up or bringing it back into the company.
Mhm.
What would be one piece of advice you would give them to take that step or I guess push through the fear? Like what would be your one piece of
Yeah.
advice?
I think there's a lot of companies who have kind of done what we had to do, which was you had to go more underground about it.
Yeah.
So it's actually become just that much harder to find the good companies who are doing the good stuff. And that's a shame because it shouldn't be harder. But that's the reality. So within that reality, how do you make sure that the programs that you're doing that you feel like are unquestionable, how do you make sure that those are still the things that you're talking about externally? Because that's your best recruitment campaign. If you want good employees who are going to want to be passionately there and are going to invest in the culture and belonging and, as we say, over delivering for the people, then you have to make sure that you're giving them something to want. And your splashy brochure of your office building is not going to do it. So I think a lot of companies had to either say we're moving away from it or they're just not talking about it anymore. It doesn't necessarily equate with the actual commitment of what they're doing because these are fraught times. These are
Mm,
times where it's very hard to say, like, as boldly as we used to, that I care about the people that are working for this company. But the real companies are still doing it regardless of whether they're shouting
mm,
about it. They're still doing it, even if it's not as loud, it's still there. And I think it might be harder to find them, but it's not impossible.
mm.
And companies that want to win long term are going to find ways to communicate that to candidates, to clients, that they're going to figure it out. They're going to find them eventually because that's what people are yearning for. That's what they're seeking out. So I would say you can go quiet, but don't go silent and make sure you're speaking about the right things.
That's so good. Oh, Sarah, Sarah, I'm going both. I'm jumping between the both
You
of
know
both names. Thank you so much for your time. You are very inspiring and kudos to you to keeping the lights on is what I would say and shining brightly through. And I can't wait to see what this looks like, longer term and the difference you're continuing to make in this space. And yeah, well done. I'm truly inspired by you. So thank you for your time. How do we find out more about the company and how do we find out, yeah, more about MiQ? How do we find out more about you?
So MiQ Digital, we're on every social media platform. We have a website. A lot of our social media is We Are MiQ, which I think tells you a lot about how we position ourselves.
Yeah,
It's
I
all
love it.
about the togetherness
Yeah.
and the unity of us. As for me, you can find my book life and my parent life on saraxelbaum.com pretty easily, and my work life on LinkedIn. So it's Sarah, no H, Axelbaum, pretty easy there. And I actually just want to say thank you for having these authentic, real, genuine conversations because there's just not enough of them happening right now.
Oh, thank you so much. No, I get so much out of them as well. Like, just the ability to, it's like you say, it's having a voice. And I think if we can together talk more about this openly, we're opening up the opportunity for everyone else to be having these conversations, and we're only as good as the collective, right? So that's why it's so important. And here we are reshaping what is next, and I think it's really important that we have these conversations. Your book, what's your book called? Just so that I can add that to the show notes.
Uh, so it's not published yet. I'm working on finding an agent to get it published. It is middle grade, so that means it's for kids 8 to 12. Right now, the working title is The Mythical Creature Conservatory, and it's about a young boy who has high anxiety, who is recruited to save mythological creatures from extinction.
Oh,
So
cool.
it is
Very
a
cool.
bit of eco-fiction, and it has a lot of coping mechanisms to help kids kind of feel like even if they have anxiety or they are challenged to kind of be the cool kid, they feel like they're getting bullied a lot, that they still have the power with them in them to really do amazing things in this
Oh,
world. And I wrote
incredible.
it for my
Well,
funds.
we look forward to this being published, and let us know when it
Thank you.
is, and we can add it because it's all up on it'll everything will be up, so we can add it into the I'll add it in, but yet to be published I'll put in brackets. So coming soon. Oh, I'll put coming soon actually. So
Coming
thank
soon. I love
thank
that.
yeah, thank you so much, Sarah Axel. It's been incredible, and wishing you. I love all your plants, by the way. I'm a big plant woman myself, and that's very cool. But thank you so much for your time, and have a happy Thursday evening.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Take care.